case narrative used to take 8 to 10 minutes can be done in a few seconds. News feeds can be analyzed for risk-related data. And these news data can be summarized. Data foundations remain the biggest constraint. Ingestion of unstructured data, synthesizing unstructured information.
What are the biggest barriers they see? Is it, you can come from technology barriers, the governance, or organizational barriers?
Institutions can't see what's happening. What they can't see, they can't govern.
Hello all, welcome to another exciting episode of AI on the Edge. Jiva leads Ernst & Young's FinCrime Risk Technology Consulting team. He brings years of experience, deep expertise across compliance technology, financial crime analysis, AI, data, risk transformation in financial services.
But actually, I went one step ahead by using some of the LLM techniques by looking at the answer sheets they are handwritten, scanning them, and then using AI to correct the answer sheets based on a set of key.
Consumers are ahead. The enterprises are lagging when it comes to AI.
Releasing trapped value, inefficiencies in operation, and preparing in a safe and secure manner with proper boundaries and proper security controls is what we want all aspire for, and that's where I think the players like yourself contribute.
Hello all, welcome to another exciting episode of AI on the Edge podcast. I'm glad to have with us today Jiva Prahik Marmani. He's a partner at Ernst & Young in the UK. Jiva leads Ernst & Young's FinCrime Risk Technology Consulting team. He brings years of experience, deep expertise across compliance technology, financial crime analysis, AI, data, risk transformation in financial services. He has worked closely with financial institutions on how to adopt new technologies while managing regulatory expectations, governance, and business risk. With that, welcome to the podcast, Jiva. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, and we'll start from there. Then we'll go deeper into today's topic.
First of all, I'm super excited to be on the podcast with you, and thanks for having me. It's always good to speak to fellow alumni from college days, right? So I think I'm very pleased to be talking to you. So I think my journey has been started as an engineer. So went to the same uni as yourself, Amar, again engineering college. Then did 5 years in pure technology roles, programmer, architect, solution architecture roles across various institutions. Then I did my MBA. I think similar to yourself, I wanted to go and get some missing links fixed by doing a business degree. So I came to the UK, did my MBA here in London, and then I thought maybe I should go and become a banker and joined a bank. So I worked in a universal bank in the UK for close to 5.5 years. And those years I learned a lot about how a bank operates, how to adopt technology, data analytics, and enabling bank's own functions. And that's when I got involved in risk management and financial crime. And when things were all going very well, I wanted to make my life more exciting. And I did the same thing you did. You went to consulting as well to Booz. I came to EY as a senior manager, and I helped establish the financial crime technology practice. And since then, it has been an exciting journey with EY, close to 14 years now. Currently, I'm currently equity partner. I lead the tech data analytics functions, which enables financial crime for our clients, and work with banking, cap markets, and fintech clients here in the UK. So I've tried to follow your path, but I've still not got the entrepreneurial bug to become an entrepreneur. But hey, being a partner in EY has got its own entrepreneurial aspects to it.
Hey, thanks, Jiva. You're being generous, but thanks. I'm excited to have you in the podcast. We can start with a quick icebreaker. What is the recent AI news or development that you're most excited about?
I think I'm less excited about the news I read and more excited about the real things that is happening around myself in my own home and around me in using AI.
True.
So use cases which I've been building is to look at I have got 2 daughters, and they are excited about programming, and I always try to show them that even though I'm a consultant, I can still do some coding and help them with their projects. But I built almost like a question bank use case for them, where I looked at some of the past question papers which are used in similar to in India class 12 or A levels here, and based on past question papers predicting the next set of questions. but actually I went one step ahead by using some of the LLM techniques by looking at the answer sheets they are handwritten, scanning them, and then using AI to correct the answer sheets based on a set of
Wow.
keys
Wow.
as well. But what it
Okay.
helped me do was actually based on the previous answers the kids were getting wrong, I could actually focus the next set of questions on those mistakes as well.
True.
So this is a very
Awesome.
simple use case where
Yeah.
not only predicting the next question paper, but using physical papers to write the answer, scanning it, putting it back into the workflow. So this workflow, I built it in like a few days or a weekend, and I
Yeah.
can see that I can probably like impress my kids. But I hope that it turns into some uplift in their grades and marks in the exams, right? But
Yeah.
that's the excitement I have from my recent experience, Amar.
That's a great example, Jiva. One, you're making it more adaptive because not everybody has the same weakness. I also have two daughters. I mean, the math or any subject, how they learn, the interest level is very different. So making it adaptive, we don't have that technology, or with the depth we cannot even identify the weakness. With the AI, it opens up many avenues. Now I can give a series of questions, I can find the weakness, I can test more, give step-by-step guide to improve. So yeah, that's truly exciting example, Jiva. The way at which we are using AI in our personal life is far exceeds how we see inside enterprises. Still, enterprises are lagging when it comes to AI. Consumers are ahead, I would say that.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. This is almost like the consumerization of these technology means that enterprise users, the new workforce who are coming to work. So my kids
Right.
who will be coming to work in a few years' time, and the current generation who are 20 plus, I think they all expect to see these kinds of tooling and techniques at workplaces. And I
True.
think we as people who are building
They
software solutions for enterprises, it's in our gift to build these for these new generation of workers.
Absolutely. They will be AI first to start. Okay. So let me start with your first question. Right. You work with many financial institutions. You are seeing practically how AI is being used today. What are the most exciting or interesting use cases that are moving fast into production inside financial institutions? We can start with the use cases, then I want to dive deeper into the challenges, things like that. With that, what use cases, if you can name few, that'll be very helpful.
Yeah, great question, Amar. So I think we always start with use cases, even though I'm not a big fan of use cases, but I think
Yeah.
we have to start somewhere because we have to win the use
Right.
case war before we transform end to end. I think the use cases are mainly
True.
around releasing trapped value. So what I call by
Mm.
trapped value is inefficiencies in operations where human effort can be used for much better value-adding activities. And the use cases which are close to me and my domain are within financial crime operations. There are lots of workflows. There are workflows where people summarize alerts and cases. They support investigators by pulling data, structured information, unstructured information, draft
Yeah.
case narratives.
Yeah.
And all these can be done with much more efficiency, with precision, and these sits within control processes, which means that they are highly regulated processes as well. So the richer you can create these narratives, it is better. And these are now getting automated using LLMs in a controlled fashion. And I can see that even where case narrative used to take, let's say, 8 to 10 minutes, can be done in a few seconds, and the operator checks it and says that yes, I'm happy with the narrative, and the quality can be improved a lot. The other areas are things like ingestion of unstructured data,
Mhm.
synthesizing unstructured information. For example, news feeds can be analyzed for risk-related data, and these news
True.
data, adverse media information, can be summarized and provided to case operators for taking judgments. And those are getting done in a much more expedient fashion. You also have more deeper financial services process such as credit approval, memo automation. All these require explicit audit trail, governance, and control points. And this is where
Mm.
Gen AI becomes almost like a decision support product. It's not like a chat bot, it's a decision
Yeah.
support product. And it's already, I'm seeing this being used in full anger. I think I know that I was a little against use cases. I think the other kind of use case is more as a execution multiplier, where right? AI is enabling the core plumbing of data itself, like data quality, data control, lineages. And these gets funded by CIOs and CTOs because once you do this, it has a multiplication impact of preparing the data for AI use cases. So I think AI is being used for things like cleansing data, improving data quality, making sure that PII information is correctly identified and tagged. I mean, I think your product actually sits in that space as well. So I think I can see that use case as a key force multiplier. I think the final use case I would say is regulators are actually encouraging the use of AI for things like driving model documentation, improving model performance. FCA's AI live testing has got some sandbox environment where they're bringing in new startups, new vendors, and ecosystem players, including startups like yourself and EY, to come and build these models. So regulators are engaged in the pathways that is actually accelerating the productionization of these use cases. So yes, lots of use cases, some force multipliers and execution multipliers. Regulators are also very keen on this, which means that I'm beginning to see more and more proof of concepts actually moving into production.
Yeah. And based on your conversations, looks like the business value is always some productivity gain or some accelerating some workflow that would have taken much longer without AI, it would have taken much longer, more resources to execute. With AI, they can get this analysis, synthesizing hundreds of news articles or information, which is not practically possible. Now AI can do it, and now you have much more sophisticated way of making decisions on cases, and like how you explained. That's great. Great question. Great answer, Jiva. Now I want to go into the second question, which is as the companies adopt, like financial institutions adopt AI, they're bringing data, they're bringing new use cases into AI. What are the biggest barriers they see? Is it, you can come from technology barriers, the governance, or organizational barriers? What would you say are some of the key barriers that is preventing from going this faster?
Great question, Amar. I think I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think for me, the biggest bugbear always has been data. So I think before even we go into any other barriers, I think data foundation remains the biggest constraint in my view. I think if you look at the industry commentary narratives from industry leaders, I think they all highlight brittle and fragmented data in enterprises. They sit in different places. They have different levels of quality, accessibility, data quality. These are the reasons why many of the pilots do not graduate into production to scale, because they have not fixed the foundations. And I was like, I wrote a LinkedIn article which was like, about 2 years back, which said something like, brittle agents built on fragile foundations, right? I think the agents
that's great title. Yeah.
So I think that is my biggest bugbear, right? I think the second one is more about governance. I think if institutions can't see what's happening, what they can't see, they can't govern, right? So governance breaks when there is complete inventory of all the AI agents, AI use cases, what vendors, where they are embedded, what is the risk taxonomy. I think it creates a lot of risk for institutions, right? So I think this is because I come from a risk consulting background, I not only worry about applying AI for risk use cases, I also worry about the risk AI generates as well. And the surface area based on the adoption that is happening and lots of use cases and lots of experiments is actually quite worrying in some organizations. So governance is my second biggest governance helping AI adoption rather than stalling it. Right now, absolutely. I think there is risk sensitivity there. I think there are other challenges as well. I think talent is a big challenge. I think you're in a great location. Being in Silicon Valley, you can get access to technology talent. But in other locations, getting talented people who are, I call them as ambidextrous, right? You can't be just an AI and technical expert. You need to be AI expert plus the domain expert to survive and be successful. And getting talent is a barrier as well. And I see that the pace at which things are are moving, if we don't have talented people leading these, you're taking decisions at that pace as well. So if you make lots of
That's so true. That's so
mistakes.
true. Yeah, yeah. When you say talent, it also there is some amount of personal trait as well. What I see is smart engineers, two types of smart engineers. Yeah, smart engineers who are still trying to use as AI as an augmentation, and
Yeah.
another one fully adopting AI and let the AI work for themselves for them. So it's a pretty different personal trait. Various reasons why it's just might be curiosity or ability to adopt new things, adopt a change. Many reasons. So we see different varying levels of AI adoption even among engineers and across the organization. That's very challenging. Well, I want to double click on one point you mentioned, Jiva. That is that concept of brittle data
Yeah.
is yeah, it's very interesting. When you say brittle, what are the problems are you saying? It is the quality problem or the pipeline problem, the governance. There could be many, but what are the things you are saying as a brittle data?
Yeah, so I think both data and agents are both brittle and fragmented. I
Mm,
think what I meant
mm,
by it is data is there in different places, right? It is there in different
yeah,
silos. They've not been brought together, and they have not been
mm,
brought together for the agentic world as well. So
sure.
in the past, we used to have
Mm,
multiple silos, data flowing into enterprise data warehouses, T+1
mm,
reports getting generated. It's risk and financial crime and some of the use cases we are talking about. Overnight detection models used to run, and they used to create some alerts, and we used to stop fraud or crime or protect customers. The speed at which things are moving, you can't have this
mm.
T+1 scenario. So you need to
Right.
move into a combination of in-memory databases, OLAP and OLTP combinations where data has been brought together. And all this means that, the current data estate is not good enough for even for humans to operate. It was not good enough, and for agents
Yeah.
and AI models to operate on, it's not good
Mm,
enough. I think the other angle we should think about is
yeah.
this data estate is not good for AI vectors which are hitting financial institutions, right? So AI
Yeah.
creates additional risks, right? It creates data
Right.
privacy risk, which is where you're focusing on. It
Yeah. Yeah.
creates financial threats as well. It creates
Mm,
risk vectors where people are creating fake identities, they're creating synthetic data injections, they are attacking using, agents are attacking
absolutely.
banks, right?
Yeah.
And because the data estate is not good enough, and these are T+1 real, not real time, you're not able to protect your own customers as well. So all this means that we need to rethink the data infrastructure, and this is where I
Absolutely.
think we see a big opportunity for people like in the consulting world. There's a lot of excitement about agentic and AI, but
Right.
preparing the data for agents is equally important, and preparing
That's so true.
in a safe and secure manner with proper
Yeah.
boundaries and
Yep.
proper security controls is what we want all aspire for, and that's where I think the players like yourself contribute.
Yeah, absolutely, Jiva. That's exactly what we are seeing across our customers too. They all have very good use cases, very good AI aspirations. The challenges they face are, hey, I have this data that's customer sensitive information. I have this data that has employee information or order information, discount details, many type of data I have. I cannot directly load that into agentic systems. Not everybody inside the organization can see it. And some customers are not even comfortable sharing with agents and AI like LLMs for data sovereignty laws, especially banks in Middle East and some in India and UK, right? So those are the barriers. And what Protector like products we are helping is how can you adopt AI and get the benefits without risking your data security or data privacy or compliance. How you get the best of both worlds is what we are tackling. And I totally, what you're saying resonates with us, right? Let me
Yes,
go a little deeper. Yeah, Jiva, you have any
no,
thing
no,
to add
I think
or?
I think you're spot on. I think the problem statement you're tackling. I think there is this third-party opacity, right? It's almost like a risk for banks where they're embedding AI models, AI in various use cases. Various vendors are getting embedded. That itself is a
Yeah,
use case. No one knows to
yeah,
fullest extent what is happening. And then banks have got privacy-sensitive data. They have like customer information, transaction information, highly sensitive financial data. And when these information are passed on to these models. Already you have a third party opacity, then you have a privacy sensitive information being shared into this model, which poses a
Absolutely.
huge risk for institutions if they are not very careful about which third party are they using. Are they even
Right.
okay to share this information? And what are the techniques for doing this in a safe manner? Do you really need to pass your customer name for a summarization use case? Because all you're doing is,
Absolutely.
if the summary has to look like Amar sent money to Jiva and he
Right.
has been working with this company for 20 years, that is the
Right.
information. Do we really need to send Amar's name? Do we need to send
Absolutely.
the name of the company, or can it be done in a different manner? So these kinds of issues are quite nascent, and as the use cases become more and more mature and more high stakes, banks are beginning to think about creative ways of doing it, masking information, having
Absolutely.
tokenization, having a log of all those tokens, and a protector kind of solution. I've seen that working in big banks and institutions
Right.
in a way which other vendors are not at there yet.
Yeah, thanks, Jiva. That's exactly what we do. You put it the right way, which is, hey, they want, when you add there is privacy risk, I have uncertainty, or I can any kind of data that can flow into this fragmented data and into AI. Then on top of it, I have opacity. I don't know what AI is doing or agents are doing. Even the first party, I have some control. Third party, I don't have control. There are many agents. Then how will I see the risk end to end? How will I mitigate? How will I have visibility, controls? That's exactly what companies like us, we are focusing on. This takes us to the third question. We talked about some of the risk mitigation. What are the other ways that banks are thinking about, or institutions are thinking about scaling AI in trusted way? It could be taking care of the data well, taking care of bringing the transparency. What other ways are, you can go double click on this, they're bringing trust into this whole AI adoption?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the last at least 6 to 8 months, I'm seeing, like, since
Yeah.
middle of last year to now, what I'm seeing is that the CEOs and board level folks are directly sponsoring AI initiatives, and they are looking at it as a very well managed portfolio of initiatives. Some
Yeah.
institutions, that they're calling it as either as big rock initiatives or strategic initiatives, which are going to, like, create that momentum in the organization. And because it is sponsored at a very senior level, I think it is cutting through some of the politics and some of the barriers which would have otherwise stalled some of these initiatives. But they're also helping in a way to systematically have almost like a layered governance model. So if there are
Mhm.
high stakes, high risk use cases, you need like a higher level of governance. But if the use cases are internal use cases, much more simpler, for example, I think we produce internal proposal documents, right? That doesn't have sensitive information. We can actually have lesser levels of governance. But if it is privacy sensitive information where I'm summarizing a customer transaction data, that requires a different level of tiered governance. So
Absolutely.
board level sponsorship coupled with layered governance model is actually beginning to happen, and that is helping. I think the responsible AI part, I think you touched as well. I think that is
Yeah.
becoming a more and more like a prominent part of the discussion, where how do you establish the common inventory, common registry of all the models, tiering of models, reusable templates, those kinds of helping in a helpful manner, right? Not becoming
Yeah.
a so
Hindrance.
I think that is beginning to take shape. Control by design is becoming almost like a non-negotiable thing. Designing pilots to anticipate that there will be validation. You need to almost anticipate that regulators will have oversight over these models, right? So I think those kinds of, I think in the early days, I think there is a bit of experimentation, but now I think we need to have a bit more grown-up conversation about these. The last one I would say is talent. I think I
Yeah.
can see that. That is a big, almost like a force multiplier of all these use cases, right? So I can see more and more people, like the ones we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
ambidextrous people with both AI literacy but also domain experts on a topic. They're becoming incredibly valuable in these use cases, because
Absolutely.
you sit in a product organization where
Right.
you have a product team where the product owner is making decisions on what to do on a daily basis, and that
Right.
requires knowledge and experience and war stories from multiple dimensions of skill sets. And those kind of talented people are valuable scalable. And I can see that that's another momentum which is helping more people coming into financial services, fintechs, vendor ecosystem, all coming together to propel the momentum as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
that's
think overall. Sorry, go ahead.
no. Finish your thoughts, Jiva.
No, I think overall, I would say it's the portfolio approach of board level oversight and board level
Yeah,
sponsorship, control by design, responsible
yeah,
AI taking shape, and talent becoming a bit more visible. The right
yeah,
kind of talent is
yeah.
getting the
That's true.
sponsorship.
Yeah. So that's a practical way of building trust into this whole AI adoption. Makes sense. So my final question or topic is: you see variety of finance institutions, right? So some are really accelerating, some are taking time, some are still exploring. Of all the companies that take AI forward, what are the things you see are the best practices or some other things they have changed that led them? One is obviously talent. Any other things that is allowing them to accelerate? That will be very helpful.
Yeah, I think giving access to AI tools to your
Mm.
employees is an important
Yeah,
big change I have seen across financial institutions. I think in the early start, I think we discussed about consumerization of AI, right? I think you
that's
see
true.
people, Amazon, Google, Spotify kind of experience in real life, and they want to see the
Right.
same in organizations as well. I
True.
think 15, 20 years back, I think when I was in a bank, I think it used to take like maybe 5 or 6 years for having access to the same features and functionality in enterprise tooling. But I think probably COVID helped accelerate that as well. We've got Zoom and
Mm.
Microsoft Teams accelerated into adoption, and
Absolutely.
AI followed that, right? So the
Mm.
speed at which OpenAI, ChatGPT, and all those tooling becoming accessible to employees and enterprise staff meant that everyone is now like buzzing with ideas and new use cases. And that also got extended when you had app building capabilities now in the hands of business users who are able to prototype and get a near ready prototype for developers to build as well. So I
True.
think this I feel like is a big thing which has positively impacted the financial services industry, where there is no longer like that gap between consumer feature set and what's available in enterprises. But of course, it's a high stakes environment. We're making critical decisions in operations and customer services and risk and regulatory controls, which means that moving from the employee facing use cases into end consumer facing use cases, there is a lot of work to be done. And that's where consultants like us, serious players like yourself who are solving complex problems, I think we are required to guide and help the industry.
Yeah, makes sense. So the companies that allow their employees to experiment with AI versus companies that still restricting are the key difference. Why some companies are accelerating versus not. So true. With that, we are towards the end of our podcast. Thanks, Jiva. I really enjoyed our conversation. This will be very useful, very informative episode for our audience too. Any closing thoughts in terms of we talked a lot about AI, data, agents, risk. Any closing thoughts on these topics? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If not, we can close the episode.
No, I think a quick thought from me or a question to you. I know that you work on the West Coast and you work with all the big tech players and you have an ecosystem which is very different from what I experience here in London. I think we are very use case centric, function domains, and so on. How do you see the industry adopting these techniques, especially pharmaceuticals, healthcare, financial services in the US itself, adopting AI? Do you see a difference
Oh,
between the language I'm speaking and what you're hearing there?
absolutely, Jiva. There is a big difference in within the industries, within companies. For example, I constantly talk to the top like Google, all the FANG companies, right? What we see is they are few months or years ahead in terms of how they want to use AI. So in many cases, people are in fact given a strict instructions to build agents that will do their work. They cannot directly do it, right? They have to build an agent to do it. That means I'm forcing you to adopt agents, right? So I'm hoping that with that, it will become a multiplier and you will accelerate faster. So some tech companies are forcing, but when you see the same thing on a non-tech like a healthcare or a financial services, it's not the same, right? So the tech companies are pushing really ahead in terms of AI adoption. Then regulated industries like what we discussed, there are challenges in how will I get my data ready for AI? How will I manage my risk in AI? How will I get the visibility? Still, the adoption is compared to the tech adoption is still limited, right? There are few use cases where we see some of the use cases we talked, where there is a summarization use case, or when there is unstructured text that was probably taking a lot of time to process, or it would have been not impossible to process. Those are getting faster adoption, right? There is two ways you can think about. I'm going to add AI on top of existing structured data, or I can put data on something unstructured. So though the initially a few months back, all the buzz was, hey, I'm going to put a text to SQL kind of layer on top of existing structured data. Yes, we see that a lot. But what we see is, hey, I have this massive volume of data, like millions of claims document. I have millions of customer conversations. Now, how can I use AI on top of it? Is where these companies are trying to go. Once you go into that use case, then there are data challenges, then there is the compliance challenges, data risk, all those things starts coming. So that's where Protector is helping. So in terms of giving you this in a 10,000 feet, tech companies are ahead, right? Then comes the rest of the companies, regulated companies, still they're structurally blocked because of regulations, data, and things like that. Then within the organization, what we see is these unstructured text versus this structured. We see a lot more unstructured getting attention because the as you said, the force multiplier in this case is way higher than this, right? Still, yeah, I can work on text to SQL, but this unstructured text is which couldn't have been done before, right? No way I can process this millions of claims data. So that is where we see traction inside. But some of the points you mentioned, that the challenges being one, the availability of talent, right? That's still there, right? We operate both in US and India and Bangalore. So availability of talent, because this technology itself is new. So nobody is going to say, I have 5-year experience. No, It is only 2 years, right? Agents are less than. So that change is still there in the US as well, right? So, but I see fast experimentation.
Excellent. Okay, well done. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Jiva. Thanks again. Thanks for your time, and hope we'll see you in another episode very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.